I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Legislative Committee on Monday, October the 16th, 5:30 p.m. Chairman Hyde, would you mind saying the prayer for us?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings to us. We just pray, Lord, tonight as we meet here to conduct this great county's business, that you will guide and direct us in our decisions, that we might do the right things in your sight. We pray these things in thy name. Amen.
All right, before we approve the agenda, I want to add two items. One is it's going to be a 10B under Commission Recognitions and Proclamations, Family Court Awareness Month from the County Mayor. So add that at item 10B. And I want to add item 9F under new business is a request for procedural requirement for cast vote records request. That's item 9F under new business. I think that's okay.
What was it, procedural items?
A request for procedural requirement for cast vote records request.
Okay.
All right. And if there, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll have a
With
motion.
the amendment. Second. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda is approved. Do I have a motion for approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Show, second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Recognition of the public. We have to Mrs. Tina Tobin. If you wouldn't mind coming up here and stating your name and address for the record, we have 5 minutes.
Tina Tobin, 462 Gibbs Lane, and I'm here to request the committee do a procedural requirement for cast vote records report to be produced for every election. The CEO of Microvote has confirmed that this CVR report is a standard report for the machines, but my open records requests for CVRs have been denied. Williamson County has complied with open records requests for CVRs, as well as many of the other surrounding counties and counties across the state. So in order to give Sumner County voters the same level of transparency, I'm requesting that the commission create a procedural requirement for this report to be run. I know that transparency is important to everybody at this table, and I hope that you consider that request. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Well, next up we have Mrs. Laura Baker.
Good evening, Committee. Laura Baker, 424 A.B. Wade Road. I know you're used to seeing Kevin up here, but I'm going to be yakking tonight. I have 5 things now that I want to talk about. It's going to be 4, now it's a 5th one. So maybe I can have the rest of Ms. Tobin's time. I'm really glad to hear that request. I'll take that up first because I actually filed a public records request in August of 2022 asking for the cast vote records for the previous election. And not only did I not get the records, but I didn't even get a response from the elections department, which will lead me to the second topic that I'll talk about, which is the resource authority. And that's kind of a mixed bag with the group over there. There's some really great people and then some other ones. I had difficulty getting a public records request out of there. I don't agree with the way that they've held some of the meetings. I don't agree with them moving them out to the resource authority because when citizens choose to show up, there's not enough room there. There's not enough chairs. You can't hear what goes on in the meeting. And they have some of the members of that group, that board, and I don't want to get into naming names about who's the good and bad members on there, I'll leave it to your imagination, but have also expressed that they didn't want the meetings recorded, that it wasn't a requirement for them as it is with the county commission. We have 3 county commission members on there, so you all need to record. They don't want it to be public, so I think there's a lot of issues over there, so maybe we can dive deeper into that. I applaud your resolution about the Hendersonville Library, or discussion about that. I just want to mention there that was a long, hard battle to get the Hendersonville Library to turn over the deed the way that they were supposed to, even though that was the agreement when the library was built. Seems to be an adversarial relationship there that hasn't resolved itself. The great review, again, applaud that. This hair on fire stuff has just got to stop. And then finally, the permanent funding for SROs and state code. During the last county commission meeting, when we talked about some of this funding stuff, you know, I did mention then that there was no guarantees that the funding was recurring. And when I think about recurring, I would just put in front of you, this is last year's budget document from the state. And what they do in the budget document is to put a whole table in here of who collects the money, where the money goes, and how it's divvied up. So, and for every section of that, for instance, sales revenue is collected by the Department of Revenue, and it tells the rate and the source. 7% is the general rate that applies to gross proceeds, blah, blah, blah. 100% of the money goes into the, 100% of the 1% increase from the general rate enacted in 2002 goes into the general fund. And then 65.097% of the remaining 5.5% after the allocation to the Transportation Equity Trust Fund goes into the Education Fund and Highway Fund. So, and every one of these references has a portion of code that's referenced here about where the money goes. If they want to make that funding permanent, then they can put it into code like all of this, okay? And so this isn't me making it up, this is the state. So when your representatives and our delegation tells us it's recurring, put your money where your mouth is and put it in law. This is one way to do it. The second way to do it is how they did TISA, which isn't a separate code. It passed through a law, but what they do is they have a moving formula, right, for how many kids and what they want to reimburse for each of the special circumstances. And so that table is going to be moving. But that's what they need to do. Words don't mean anything. Put their money where their mouth is and put it in a document like this is. So, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. That concludes public comments. All right, for the chairman, I'll just note that, well, wait, I don't have anything. Let's read the item. All right, for the county mayor.
If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak to the items when they come up. Is that
That'd be
all
fine.
right?
Yep, sounds good.
Save the report.
All right. Old business. First item is the discussion on Resolution 1504-02, clarifying ownership, routine maintenance, support services, and funding for the Hinesville Library. And so that is back in the packet. That was forgotten in the packet last month, so we really couldn't look at it and talk about it. And this came about, a little background. I'll entertain a motion for discussion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Klein, second by Commissioner Brown. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I'll just lead off here that my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Law Director, is that Hendersonville is responsible for the maintenance of the equipment, AC, stuff like that, whereas if should something like that completely fail, the county and the city would split the replacement cost. And that's kind of my basic understanding. I think this all came about because there was question about being told that the school board is responsible for this geothermal system at the Hendersonville Library, and then the school board's like, it's not us. And so we, in a meeting a month or so ago, we just told the county mayor, let's just get the job done and fix the problem, and we'll worry, it needed to happen. So this is just figuring out, like, obviously we have some disputes with Hendersonville and other issues, but clarifying what exactly is Hendersonville's responsible for, what the county is responsible for, because it seems like to me that the Hendersonville needs to be billed as far as a reimbursement cost for any maintenance and repairs we had to do in the AC unit at this facility. So Mr. Law Director, I'll direct that to you if you have any.
Sure. Basically, this wasn't a very well-drafted resolution, nor was the deed that conveyed the property and the joint ownership. But since it's silent on several issues, I would say that any major repairs to the building itself, since it is joint owned by the county and the city, that it could be pro rata 50-50. The routine maintenance obviously taken care of by the city, while the insurance and liability of the property is an encumbrance for the county. So it's silent on it, and it would be a case-by-case situation. What is a routine maintenance versus an initial a significant repair adjustment such as an elevator needing to be replaced, something like that, I think the county would have a safe argument to say that's allocated 50/50.
Commissioner Shu?
I almost like to make you, so I agree with you, that's the crux of the problem, this happens all the time, what counts? What counts as a particular phrase, and this one, routine thing. And I'm just asking the question here, and I don't know if I'll direct to you, but you may want to direct to Mr. Sittler, and that is, does it make sense to, I think there are probably pros and cons to this, but does it make sense to reopen this with some additional language? And then, I mean, I assume if we do that, the city would have to include as well. So, and I don't know, you reopen something like that, it may cause more problem than it's worth. So I don't know if it's on the one hand, we have, this happens again, we've got an expense that's considered a major expense, and the city says, hey, this doesn't count as routine maintenance, and we're like, well, what is it exactly? Let's split it 50/50. We either have to keep kicking that can down the road, or we clarify it here, but if we clarify it here, we have to reopen the whole thing. So I don't know what the right call is. I'm just interested in thoughts on it.
Commissioner Hines?
Most of you may not be aware of when we were building some of these libraries in the county, it was like, you raise so much money, we will fund the remainder for the construction of libraries. At completion of the Hendersonville Library, and the mayor may remember this, there was quite a contentious event going on concerning the library. One particular alderman, who is no longer on the board of aldermen, was really not very eager to turn over the deed to the county, or anything to the county. It was like Hendersonville is going to assume ownership of the library. Somewhere that got worked out to some extent through a resolution, but we could sit here all night and talk about this. But I think the first initial thing we need to do is perhaps have our chairperson and the mayor make an appointment with the mayor of Hendersonville and just see what direction or how they're feeling about it. We don't know how Hendersonville feels about this now. This was many years ago, several years ago. So I would suggest that the three get together, come back and make a report to us on this is the feeling of Hendersonville now, this is our feeling, now what do you want to do? Because we almost have the cart before the horse.
Does that need a motion?
I make a motion to that effect.
I'll second it. To, I guess, direct you and the county mayor to meet with
That's fine.
The mayor of Hendersonville.
Sure, that's fine. We'll go ahead and vote on that, and I want to come back to the main.
I'm just surprised to hear that there was ever any controversy ever in Sumner County before this commission. I mean, crazy.
That was only the first time.
Unbelievable.
Before we take a vote, I'll get the cue. Main clarification was, it was confusion on just, if it's 50/50, then I think it's a matter of, I don't know if Hendersonville's offered to pay this or not, or if they feel that they're responsible to pay it. So I guess would that be part of a discussion, or if it's the way the deed reads it, if this is like if it's a repair, the way this reads, we'll assume that it's a 50/50, not a routine maintenance issue on that, fixing that. So I think that's more of just the fair, because that's how it reads, just in making sure, is there anything we can do with that, or?
My motion, Mr. Chairman, would mean that we have a general understanding after this meeting how Hendersonville interprets it, how the county interprets it, what they're agreeing to do, what we will agree to do, and then we bring it back here. Then we'll know where we are and what we need to do.
Okay.
We don't know what they're thinking.
Sure.
Right now.
Well, we can, the motion's on the floor, and Commissioner Parker.
Question. Eric talked about the agreement being badly written. I was wondering if he could be specific about what was wrong with the quitclaim, or what was wrong, just so that I understand what was lacking.
I believe the transfer went down the way it did based on my research of the title is the property was getting double reported for the insurance portion of this, so the state came down and did an audit at some point in time and said the county was the only one that could do this. Well, the county wasn't gonna step up and pay for all the insurance unless they had a vested interest. That resulted in the 50-50 split. My allocation of major repairs to the property are based on everything being silent. It's not because of this resolution, it's because it doesn't define it. And you can just simply go back to, the title says it's 50-50, so it's a 50-50 obligation.
So was the building already built when the agreement?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I believe, if I remember correctly, the property had been vested to the city for a library as part of the Indian Lake development, where they put in all the shops and everything when that was being developed.
Who paid for the construction of the libraries?
I do not know.
Do you know, Chairman Hunt?
The
Mr. Mayor?
city of Hendersonville, I think, raised half the money and the county provided half, I believe.
Well, and you also had a private entity, Friends of the Library, Phil Merwin. and
That was
were-
raising the
They
city's
raised money, yeah,
half, yeah.
for part of the city.
And was that a substantial amount of money as well?
I don't remember the
Don't
exact
remember.
proportions.
It's a friendly amount.
Well, we got a motion, we got a second, or I can get with the mayors of, Mayor Isabel and Mayor Clary, and we can come back next month, just come up here and meet sometime, just to figure out, you know, the law director, like, what exactly does this need to be cleaned up, and how to just, because we got in the problem existed because everybody was like, school board, and this way, we just don't want to have that happen again. We want to be able to have a quick and efficient solution.
I just think a good, clean memorandum of understanding between the city and the county would be,
Sure.
would be the.
We just don't want to get in that situation again. Commissioner Ryder?
I want to be that guy. Do we need to visit all libraries in this county? I mean, if we have a problem with one, we know they're getting some ages on them. I understand, Mr. Hyde. They're getting some ages on the units. If we have our air unit go out in Westmoreland, are we going to be right back here in January or February?
This is the only library in this situation.
They're all.
So just take them as they come?
It was a while before they would even turn over the deed,
Okay.
so.
It sounds like
Just a
they're
question.
not having problems with.
All right, we got a motion, we got a second. Any other discussion?
Will you revisit the motion? I can't remember now what it was.
The motion, Mr. Hyde, was to basically myself and Mayor Isabel and Mayor Clary just get together, discuss this,
Okay.
to make sure, see what Hendersonville's understanding is of this, so we can have a clear path of understanding forward, so people aren't looking at the school board to fix geothermal when supposedly they're not involved in this resolution and the deed. There's no agreements that said that. So whatever written, verbal proclamation there was in 2015 is muddy the water, unfortunately. So
You
that's-
said school board, but you meant that, you didn't mean school
Library
board.
I meant the school board. No,
School board.
Yeah, they were expecting the school board to fix the library at Hendersonville Library, fix the air conditioning.
Got it. Yeah,
That's why it
yeah,
causes
yeah.
confusion. That's why we, like, what does the resolution say? What does this say? So we're trying to stop this for the future. Trying to rewrite bad policy.
Got it.
All right, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously.
Did you want to keep us on old business?
Yeah, we'll keep that on our business, yes, thank you. Carry that forward. All right, resolution for the grant review.
I'll move to approve this, but I want you to approve too.
Go ahead. Okay, there's a motion to approve by Commissioner Schoch, the second by Commissioner Brown. So before you do that, I want to explain that you have to look at this. Modify some language after speaking with state rep, after the agenda came out, just basically, and I'll read it, what I added. A new whereas.
Chairman, this is the grant review.
Oh, I'm on the wrong thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. My bad. I got ahead of myself on the SRO grant stuff. So the grant review, language was added from the floor, but handed out after the agenda came out in September. The Law Director's Office spoke with some department heads, specifically Judge Blanton, and we added a new be it further resolved that was on the desk that night. But after Judge Blanton spoke, there was still some questions, so it got deferred or sent back to legislators. That's where we're at. So what I want to point out to you is that be it further resolved, this resolution does not apply to grants previously authorized by the commission that are longstanding grants or yearly recurring grants unless the Office of Law Director deems a review necessary due to questions or material changes in the terms and conditions so identified by the department head or other person having authority to execute said grant. I've reached out to Mr. Blanton. He said this is totally fine. It solves his problems.
Good.
So, Mr.
And
Chairman.
you just answered my question, and I was gonna point out that and this other little clause here that I think might have been on there before, but wasn't really emphasized, and that's accepting for good cause shown beyond control of the rest of it.
And where is that one?
That's on the first be it further resolved.
Yep.
So it's basically an out if something happened, fell into their lap too late for them to be able to do anything
So
about
I
it.
didn't follow what you were adding. Were you adding something?
No, I'm just pointing out that got added. And
Oh,
it was-
yes.
It were potentially changed, or at least it wasn't really, we didn't really discuss that too much. But if Judge Blanton and the other department heads are good with this, I'm good with this.
Yep.
So it
Second.
sounds like they are. Well, we already have a motion in a second.
Do we have a motion in a second? All right. So, any other questions on this one? Again, this is,
I'd just like to say, Mr. Chairman, because you sometimes get more credit for things than you deserve, that I'll take the responsibility for prodding you to do something along these lines, because it is very difficult to try to manage a budget and be good stewards of the public's money, and then find out that, hey, good news, we got a $4 million grant and the county has to come up with $2 million for it, after the fact, after the budget's been done and so forth. And this was not to penalize anyone or to put anyone handcuffs on anyone. It was merely an effort on my part to see that we have some knowledge of what's coming down the road so we can plan.
Yeah. And also so the public can have time to look at the documents too.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, do you want?
Well, unfortunately, I have a different view, and I certainly understand everybody wanting to be able to see everything beforehand. But on some of these, we just don't have a time frame. If we look at, and let's just look at the one that's before you now, the application window for the broadband ready communities, $100,000 non-competitive. That window's October 2nd through November 15th. We sent you the information on October 4th. You're passing that resolution. The only reason why we were able to get that on this agenda was because of the holiday. Otherwise, we would have missed it. We have a lot of our grants through TDEC, through the road projects. We have tight windows from when those come open to when we have to submit that application. Competitive grants, a lot of times we don't have those applications because we're pulling information from other entities. We don't have those ready until right before they're due. Transportation Policy Board, they'll issue grant opportunities that are due within a month. State Library and Archives, they have grants that are opened up. You have roughly a month to 6 weeks to apply for those. Now, when you're looking at like the CDBG grants, that's a 4-step process that includes a county resolution. But y'all are, once we get everything done where we do the public meetings and all of that, then we come to the county commission with all of the information and ask for a resolution for that grant. Some of your TDEC grants, you have the same thing. I think that by doing this, one, I think it circumvents the authority of the county mayor to apply for these, and then y'all have the final say when it comes to you for funding. But to meet these timeframes, we apply for them, we go through that process, and then we bring them to you. You still get the final say in it. But the reality is, it's really gonna stop a lot of grants from being even applied for. Because if we know that we can't get them within that time frame, there's really no use in applying for them, whether they're competitive or non-competitive grants. And these grant monies are real effective in serving citizens' needs. And I ask that you strongly consider retaining your authority when it comes to the funding mechanism of these grants and leaving the application process to all of the grant writers that we have in Sumner County, because this will affect all the grant writers. We don't have one grant writer in Sumner County. We have the EMA, we have the Sheriff's Department, we have Recovery Court, Health Department. All of those have their own grant writers that we try to get this process through in a timely manner. And I ask that you consider that.
Commissioner Show?
So, I just want to answer that one specifically, and I'll keep it short, but I'm going to make a philosophical comment that I think gets me in trouble here. But one, I think that under this be it further resolved, there's a phrase here that solves the county mayor's problem. That is, at the end of it, it says, accepting for good cause shown beyond the control of the grant writer. And grant writer here being, it's clear to me that the grant writer is the one specific to whatever grant is being applied for. And good cause could very well go beyond the control of the grant writer. One of those causes is insufficient time to be able to apply for it. So I don't think that looking at that clause, there shouldn't be anything that should stop a grant from being applied for by your office or any other office if time constraints are beyond, would have otherwise precluded it under the auspices of this resolution. All it has to be stated is just a comment that, this grant was first opened for application on date X, and that date was too shallow to be able to fall under, to be able to comply with this resolution, and I think that's pretty simple. The second thing, so I just think that there's it's not an issue because of that clause right there.
Agreed.
The second thing I'm gonna say here is that, man, this very frustrating the way government runs. We're just addicted to money from all over the place, and just because somebody inflicts dangles a carrot in front of you with a short timeline and no time to think through it. I don't think this commission has ever actually denied a grant here, but look at this. This is the kind of thing every one of us everybody here is a conservative, right? But we're always we need to be thoughtful and plan and look ahead and do all this. But this is how we slow walk our way little by little by little toward increasing the size of government at every level. I'm not even saying it's all necessarily bad, but this is how it happens. So I'll get off my soapbox because I know we need to move along.
Commissioner Klein?
Mr. Chairman, for my part, I think the spirit of the resolution is that the commission, who ultimately effectively signs the check, has the most time, and in this case I would say as much time as the grant writer, to see the blank grant in the very beginning, and then once the grant writer has filled out all the spaces that are empty, we get it again. I just have always had a problem with somebody else spending my money. Me being the representative for District 6, they want me to know everything about what I'm signing them on the hook for. So we have the ability to have emergency meetings. If it's that urgent and it has to happen in a 30-day period, I don't see that us getting the grant, the blank grant and then the filled out grant, just so that we can at least know what we're talking about when it finally comes to commission. That's where I'm at with it.
Commissioner Tooper?
I gotta say, I appreciate what the mayor said, but if we go back to the reason for the resolution, which is in the second whereas, the county commission wishes to address any issues that might arise with the grant process at an early stage. The reason for that is to protect our citizens' money from political theater that happens and unneeded drama. Because as soon as it goes through every time, and I'm just going to call it out, if we don't have any time and we get an agenda item like this with no time for it, for the broadband ready communities program, well, you don't want your communities ready for broadband, and so it's like, well, I haven't gotten to read it all, and so, but they're going to give us a bunch of money, and it's going to happen that way, whether it be with the schools, or whether it be with the sheriff's department, or EMA, water, anything. It will always be, you don't care about the citizens. And I think it's pretty easy and obvious to see, as many people as come to these meetings, everybody cares about the same thing. We all care that the taxes stay low, the people are able to afford to live here, and people's needs are met. That's what our job is. We have to be the gatekeeper, not the all-seeing authority, not that. We have to be the gatekeeper to protect the money that's not ours. It's theirs. And so I think that we have to pass resolutions like this to keep from drama and theater from consuming every single meeting for no point, no reason, but harm to the citizens.
Mr. Rogers.
There's got to be something to it because, you know, even at the state level, we see our state government looking at ways to back out of federal funds for education. I think that speaks volumes. And then for us to say that we can't agree with a simple resolution of this nature speaks volumes for the other side. I think that we really need to get to the brass tacks of we are here for the people. It's the people's money. So I'll be supporting this resolution as it's written.
Any further discussion? Who had the motion on that?
I think I have.
Who was the second? Mr. Brown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried unanimously. All right, new business, veteran service report and presentation. Mr. Oakley.
Good evening. So, you said kind of a short one. It was more of a slog this past month. The VA's gotten really far behind on processing claims. So the first good news story is that we had a widow from Westmoreland came and saw us at outreach early in the month, last month, and 2 days later she got 3 decisions back from the VA, including a lifetime compensation because her husband had died from something that was service connected. So that speed kind of goes to, it's just kind of the quality of the work that we've been doing, kind of the aggressive follow-up. Same thing, we got we had about 15, 20 outstanding pensions. They've been outstanding for 4.5 months, and these take a long time to get through the VA. We got 5 of them closed just by following up. So we just keep finding little things to help out the different citizens around the county. Been doing a lot more outreach. We talked up in Portland and the Rotary Group. We were out having some public engagements trying to reach out. And this is a report for September. We had a lot more good news coming in October, including kind of a pretty cool initiative we're going to work on with healthcare folks at the hospital down in Nashville to do telehealth and kind of expand the reach into the county and help out folks who can't make it down to Nashville.
Okay, awesome.
Any questions?
All right, thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Oakley. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right. Item B, jumped ahead earlier. A resolution requesting permanent funding for SROs and state code. Motion by Commissioner Hyde.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Show. I'll read aloud what I added over the weekend. That wasn't in the packet. You see in red, it says, whereas public chapter number 367 comprehensively addresses vital aspects of school safety, encompassing safety plans, security systems, annual drills, security assessments, and training requirements for armed security personnel. Nevertheless, it notably lacks a mandatory provision for securing permanent funding dedicated to school resource officers and educational institutions. The other whereas I added was, after confirming with our finance director, that should the state not fund this in the future, the county is still on the hook with a maintenance effort. And so It's just acknowledging that, whereas if the state should withdraw SRO funding, the county would continue to be bound by the maintenance of effort obligations associated with acceptance of said funds, thereby continuing the county's maintenance of effort requirements without a funding source, potentially necessitating property tax increases, which is one of the issues that people have about this coming up like this is and the funding. And then on the second page, just to add in number 2, is basically our ask of the General Assembly. I've already spoken with Representative Lambert, and he said he would be happy to work with this kind of language at the state in the legislature. So it's saying, we strongly urge the State General Assembly to enact legislation that would release the county from the maintenance of effort obligations tied to the acceptance of said funds in the event of state funding discontinuation, thus reducing the county's maintenance of efforts requirements. So I thought that was important. Citizens requested this, came forward and asked after last month's discussion, heard me talking and said, hey, I really still nervous about this. I want you to add some more requests to the state. And, you know, truth be told, it's not codified in state law. And there's a book that this is Baker brought from the state where this can be codified in state law. And if they're serious about this, then that's what they need to do to make all the counties feel better. So, Mr. Shepard.
I'm just wondering, you know, we throw all these up there and they'll just go into the ether. I'm wondering if it makes sense. I mean, you said Mr. Lambert was willing to work on this. I'm wondering if we should add language to state that we request that Representative Lambert carry such a bill to this effect and that Senator Hale carry such a bill to this effect in the Senate. I wonder if we can do that, or if that would make sense. Actually, you know, put it on individuals as opposed to just throwing it up there to the general assembly.
Are you making an amendment?
Well, I don't know if we, I guess I would ask if that would be something that we could do in this resolution.
Yeah, you can ask anybody do what you want.
My only problem with it would be the specificity. The tighter you try to make it, the harder you create an environment where you got little working room here.
Yeah.
You kind of throw it up to everybody and
That's the
try to
thing.
catch
If
as many
everybody's
fish as you
responsible,
can.
nobody's responsible.
Okay, there's no problem with this.
I mean, he said he's willing to, Representative Lambert said he's willing to work with us.
I spoke with him, he said he was, that's what kind of, I just wanted to give him a heads up, we were doing this after the agenda came out, and I had some questions about it, and did not realize that should the state pull back funding, that we would still be required to fund it, because the state doesn't work that way. The state doesn't bind themselves to the degree that they bind us on everything.
I know.
And so the state can, you know, so, exactly, they don't have to abide by it. So I think for citizens have requested this, and it's a good faith effort, you know, because this is a risk. I mean, this is a genuine risk of moving forward of any kind of plan to use this money for anything recurring should the funding be pulled back. And so if they're serious about it, then they need to codify it because it exists in other things. And that's in state law all throughout that big fat book that the state has.
So, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I got 2 questions. Can I ask the law director a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we put in here, we've already got the State General Assembly. If we just put in here that we call them out by name, I think we include William Slater and Johnny Garrett too, right? I mean, but just, you know, I think, I mean, Matt needs credit for that because, I mean, he just said 2 of them, but I'm saying I think he would agree with that. But I think that there's no reason we can't do that, right? I mean, it's the same thing. There's no legal
If you
reason.
want to try and play both sides of the fence here, my recommendation would be including but not limited to kind of language.
Yeah.
However you want to parse that out, but
I was going to say, we strongly urge the State General Assembly, and I would just say VIZ, you know, namely, you know, VIZ, I would say Farrell Hale, Johnny Garrett. I think this is, I'll let Matt pick up from this because he was actually.
Yeah, I've got some language here. I'm going to remove names.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, on this item 2, we strongly urge the State General Assembly to enact legislation that will include, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. More, that colon, that period would become a semicolon. And we would add the language, we specifically request those representatives who represent Sumner County citizens to carry such legislation.
We could say the 35th and the 44th and the 45th.
Just
You
Sumner,
could say the state legislative, Sumner County legislative
the
delegation.
Sumner, there we
I
go,
like
the
that.
Sumner County legislative delegation to carry such bills.
And
Then that way we don't have names in there. but
would you
we're just-
agree to include it on every time it says State General Assembly? The same
I
thing?
just think, I think it's just right there.
I mean, just like, it says right here and right here.
I would say, I think 1 and 2 would make sense.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair, 1 and 2, that's fine. Yep, that's fine.
And then, yeah.
That's, so, you want me to restate that? as
And
an
through
amendment?
Tennessee code, should we put that in there? Just call it out, just codify it. Request that they codify it.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion today.
He's basically got you got your first amendment.
I'll make an amendment to his,
You haven't done anything
Yeah, I
yet.
haven't done my amendment. Let me.
You want to hold on for a second?
I will.
Let me, well, go ahead
Getting
and just make that, I'll
ahead of
make
it.
this amendment and I'll be super clear. So on items 1 and 2, the periods become semicolons. And at the end of it, we add the language, we specifically request the Sumner County delegation to the General Assembly to carry such legislation.
Steve, got that?
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll get to it. But I need a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
We specifically
A
request
second.
the Sumner County legislative delegation to carry such legislation
Yes.
After points
after
1
both
and 2.
1 and 2.
we could clean it up just by saying specifically, comma, the Sumner County. Does it matter?
No, because it's too, the English major in this coming out. It's 2 full sentences.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put
There's still a
specifically
colon.
before request, but it's different. But anyway, so, I'd always follow the verb with that verb, but I just think, sorry. Anyway,
You
so
have a doctorate, so you got,
I'm making I want to make an amendment. We can have it whichever way,
we don't have a second.
pre or after.
We need a
I'll second it. I'll
Okay,
second it.
Commissioner Teacher is going to second.
But I want to make an amendment that we say that, how would we word this? Help me with wording this. To codify it. I want to say and make it Tennessee code, annotated through, for the budget, where it would show up on that book, so.
If they pass legislation, that is codifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and pass the legislative.
Well,
yeah,
I
executive
understand what you're
procedure.
saying, and I agree with it. I think that's going to be in 1 and 2 again, as far as and make it a part of Tennessee code annotated. And it's
Yes.
basically the spirit of what.
Just
it
right there
is.
at the end of that.
I don't know how to.
Will it be request,
Because here's the difference, because what they did is they passed a public act, chapter 367, that did not mention any of this. There's no requirement for funding. There was other requirements for other things, but no, like safety checks, but there was no requirement, so they can codify this.
Yeah.
And so.
So I wanna
it's
amend
our
that.
opinion.
just a
there.
note here. If you pass legislation, it becomes a part of Tennessee code annotated.
Well, they're arguing the budget was passing legislation, and it's not.
Yeah, that's what my worry
That's
was.
why it's important. And if you look at that budget book, it references
Okay.
how the tax dollars are allocated through TCA code, and it lists the specific code of how the tax dollars are being allocated. That's what we're asking them to do as part of the code. It's a literally codified. like-
Well, would it just make sense to say within Tennessee, at the end of 1, just say Tennessee code annotated? As opposed to
Yes,
just
within,
state code?
yes, that would be.
That would
yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, I would like that.
You don't have to, I'll
Yeah.
make that part of my agenda.
Perfect.
As part of what I said, it would say, instead of the state code, it would say within Tennessee code annotated.
You
That's
can just say
perfect.
codify.
Okay, yeah,
Can you reread that? one?
so I'll reread the whole thing here. Item 1, we strongly urge the State General Assembly to codify, not pass, legislation that permanently includes funding for school resource officers, SROs, as a mandatory provision within strike state code, make it Tennessee code annotated.
That's great, man.
Then, everything I said before. Note the same with number 2, keep the same, we specifically request Sumner County legislative delegation, blah, blah, blah.
Second. Thank you, Matt.
Mr. Law Director, Mr. Attorney, do you guys have any questions on that? Any other further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Semicolon, yeah, semicolon, sorry.
All right.
Yeah, good stuff.
Item C, discussion for Resource Authority improper meeting letter. I have a motion for discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is towards the end of your packet. If I could have the law director just kind of explain this and why this was sent out to the Resource Authority. It seems to be a common occurrence with some of these boards and committees.
Well, basically, I sent this to Mr. Moore, who's the attorney for the Resource Authority, and basically fell under the no good deed goes unpunished. I do not have authority over the Resource Authority, but I have noticed some inconsistencies and some violations that I keep them apprised of. And again, there was another Open Meetings Act violation and also the failure to add public comment to the meetings, which are already in a very tight venue to begin with. And there's other things I would have addressed, but it would have fallen on deaf ears, I feel. But anyway, I sent this to him again just as to help him understand that it's my position that even though I have no authority over the Resource Authority still has certain obligations under Tennessee law and how they conduct their meetings, and that I'm trying to get the other entities to kind of rein in and operate the way that we're required to operate. So that's what led to this letter.
Commissioner Brown.
Crux of this goes back to the fact they don't believe they're a government entity. Now, they, were created by a private act, but they don't believe that the lawyer and some of the board members say they're not part of the government, and therefore don't have to have open meetings. They don't have to abide by anything that's said, and that's the problem we have with them.
Commissioner
So,
Deaton.
yeah, so how much money is it they get? Is it 400,000? Is that number wrong?
It's $100,000 a year.
$100,000
in the budget process.
Okay. So, I make a motion that we have our law director turn this into a resolution that just states that in order for our commissioners to still be a part of the Resource Authority, and, I mean, we could just have it where the funding has to be withheld unless we.
It's not that
Yeah.
simple a fix.
That's simple.
There's the private act, there's agreements that have been made with other cities and the county to be a part of this, and it's not that simple a fix.
I see.
It's a 5-year thing before we can get rid of the 100,000, but all of this has to be redone, and it starts with that
Did
private
you say it's a
act.
5-year thing?
Yeah.
I thought it was 2. Like,
What
they just have to have a 365 notice. Commissioner Janung is on the Resource Authority. Hold on a second first.
Well, I was
you
just gonna
first.
ask, well, I just read.
Go ahead.
quick thing.
You're-
And I'm happy to, hear all this out, but I guess at the end of the day, is there anything we can do here? I mean, is there anything, and I'm not trying to cut discussion, but if there's nothing that we can affect or do, I'm wondering what the end goal of this is. Because if there is something we can do, by all means, let's
I think
figure a path.
the commission's only tool that they've got in this is purse strings. Anytime there's a purse string item. So other than that, as far as operation, how they conduct things, they're well, and that's another problem.
Is there any
I
legal
can't-
action that can be taken to hold them accountable for, violating state law in this instance of Open Meetings Act?
If you want to send me down that rabbit hole, I'll be glad to investigate, but it's still going to be an issue of control. They have the authority to operate under their own set of rules. Now, I have asked for documents, which I haven't received, as to what contracts they think they're operating under, getting completely executed contracts, and a suit may be something that the county could entertain, but I don't think it'd be time or money best spent for the commission.
Who owns the building?
I believe the Resource Authority does. And that's another thing, they're sitting on a fairly big hunk of money, like $7 million and that.
If you guys are, Commissioner Nunn, you'd
Yeah,
like to speak?
I just wanted to clear up some things that you said. So the county is on the limb for $100,000 for garbage, trash pickup. But at the meeting, Resource Authority meeting, it was brought up that, and I think we made a mistake, that the county used their $100,000 and then they sent a bill and didn't pay their debt. However, the director brought to his attention that the county had, as of, for 1 year, only used $27,000 in trash removal. So my comment was, oh, well, that's great, because then we can give $75,000 back to the county if you just want to leave it as a come as you go, because it's a tipping fee. And they agreed to that. So they're looking at giving back the $100,000, and I may be, I may be wrong, but give back the $100,000 commitment and have the county pay as you go. Because actually it would be cheaper for the county, because the county is doing too many different projects. There have people picking up from one group, and then you have the school board, the school system picks up their garbage from somebody else. So the county is actually not utilizing that $100,000 like they could. So it would save you money, right? And so I'd like to clear that up, and I'll clarify again when I go to the meeting. Regarding the meetings, yes, it's been contentious, to say the least, sometimes. We have asked to move it back to the county. I specifically asked to move it back to the county. There's two reasons. One, it's, they have one entrance into the building. It's, if there is a fire, there's only one exit out. And I felt that was a great deal of concern for myself and the other folks in the room. And the second reason I asked them to move it, it's dark, there's no security out there, and I felt that that was unsafe for us as commissioners, especially 3 females out there in the dark, being at the meetings. At least bring it back here. And then the citizens, they are packed in there. We've had people sitting on the floor, and I find that inappropriate for the citizens who actually are affected by all of this. So we have brought that to their attention. We are outnumbered. There's only 3 commissioners, and the rest, are different voting block. So we're working with them, trying to help them understand that. We'll bring it up again. I hope that we can continue to educate them about the open records. I think Mr. Moore, the attorney, is starting to realize that he needs to do that. And of course, I have started barking when, like, hey, wait a minute, don't wait, don't do that. So just letting you know what's going on out there. I don't know about, Terry Boyd knows more about the Private Act. She's very versed in that. She probably speaks to the Private Act. So there's a lot going on, and they're getting ready to build the large transfer station, which is the commercial side of it. So there's going to be a lot going on with that. So you need to be on your toes when it comes to looking at all this stuff. So if you have any questions, I'll try to give you my answer as best I know. I'm very limited.
All right, thanks, Mary. Mr. Clark.
I hate to throw another thing on their plate, but do we need to send our legal counsel to the meetings?
We've been.
Oh, you have? Okay.
They've witnessed.
I don't know if there's anything we can do.
Well,
I'm not aware of it.
we own 3/7 of the organization, certainly.
I think it's worth noting, because the county is on the hook for the bond, should the city default. So, I mean, it's taxpayer money. And I voted against that bond, because there's things there's inefficiencies in the way it was managed, brought up in 2020, and did a lot of research about it, that I think stuff could have been done or been implemented in a different way. So, I mean, you have, a body that is basically defying state law, at least in our opinion, and violating Open Meetings Act for sure. But if it says it's not a government entity, but it's by a private act, it's a government entity, and so that's indisputable. And we're doing bonds for them, so I mean, it's important for the citizens to have access to this information, the citizens to be able to speak to meetings, and they're kind of intentionally moving in a way that can't happen, and so.
As far as the interlocal agreement goes, the county is the parent, and the cities are the children. They can walk away, and we're stuck. That's the biggest problem with that whole situation.
Mr. Howard.
I'd like to make a motion that we ask our legislative delegation to request of the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee the status of the Resource Authority, his opinion, which is an opinion, but until it's challenged by some court procedure, it's pretty much accepted as law. We cannot request, it would take the delegation to request him to give an Attorney General's opinion. I put that, we don't really know where we stand until we get that done, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
So basically ask the legislatures, as part of the resolution, put forward a request.
To ask our delegation.
Our delegation.
Not the legislature, it's our delegation to ask the Attorney General if he would give an opinion on what is the status of a private act such as this in Sumner County.
Whether they're governmental
Is it
entity or
public,
not.
is it private, what is it?
That makes sense.
All right, we got a motion, and we got a second. Do you guys have that question written down?
Yeah, I got it.
Got it, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
have the resolution ready for, I guess, packet for next Monday. All right. Item D is a resolution for broadband ready community program. Do I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Show, second by Commissioner Klein.
I don't want anybody to go out on like a football field and say that I don't want anybody to have broadband.
I will note that it's interesting that there were some commissioners that wanted to cut broadband funding this summer out of the budget, so, and use it for other things. So, it's just, I find it ironic that this comes up, that, it's, hey, broadband is important and the funding for it. So, any questions, Commissioner Rogers?
I was just gonna ask, no, because we don't need to call people by name, but I'll just chew on my tongue.
All right, we got a motion and we got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item E, resolution appointment of Steve Nelson as judicial commissioner.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Hyde. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item F is what I have new, is a request for procedural requirement for cast vote records request. Entertain a motion. Discussion.
Also move for discussion.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Shove, second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this tonight. We received an email from commissioners over the weekend, and kind of a citizen request to deal with this, and I think it's important because we're talking about election integrity throughout the state, throughout the nation. It's a big hot topic. As far as, and we've been on budget tonight, it's a request to fund a special election for Millersville, and I believe in December. So I think this is definitely timely. I guess, I'm trying to figure, I guess the ask is to put forward a resolution. Is this, I guess, a request to the election commission, or is this a request to the state? Is my opening question, but Commissioner Show.
Wait, so you're going down a couple of different paths. I am here, I guess. One, I'm wondering, one, is this, so we reference Williamson County. I guess I would just kind of want to know how this works, and two, I mean, it seems, this is one of those things that seems on its face like good stuff. and sometimes the devil's in the details. One, how Williamson County, what their actual procedures for responding to such requests are now. And two, to your point, how exactly would we affect this? This feels to me like yet another appeal to the state, urge the election commission to operate in this manner. Because they're an independent body, so I feel like we have to go up and then back down. But I'm not sure on how to do this. So I guess, one, I'd want a little more detail on how it's done, and two, how it's done now in Williams County, and two, what we would need to do in order to have it. Not saying I'm against it. I think I'm probably 100% for this. Just want to get it right.
Well, the ask in the email, I'll read it, is from the citizens, I'm formally requesting that the commission institute a procedural mandate ensuring that the cast vote record, which is CVR report, is made available for public access in every local Sumner County election, commencing with the Millersville special election.
I just don't know if we can do that.
I get it. I guess the grievance that brought this up is getting the informed here that the record did not exist and it can only be created on election night. I guess this is so. And then goes on to say for the November 22nd election, November 2022, request was before for that CVR report, and the request was denied, and the citizen was told that it could not request a record before it existed, which left her with no option to get the report, because the report cannot be requested ahead of time, and it cannot be requested after the election since it would not have been created. So it seems like there's this technical bureaucratic gray area of you can't ask before, you can't ask after. So I guess that's why it's a request for us to institute a procedural mandate ensuring that it is made available for public access after the vote is cast. But again, trying to figure out how to craft a resolution. Is it to our state General Assembly or because to the state election board? Because I don't think we can mandate that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
I think what I kind of similar to what Mr. Hyde did earlier. I think my motion would be to direct the law office to investigate the best method for the county commission to request a procedural mandate, to ask the law office to draft what they believe to be the best option to do this and bring it to the next legislative session.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Rogers. Open for discussion on that motion. If I can ask a question of our law director, I don't know if you know the answer, but does this sound about a good course of action and how to, basically asking you to investigate? I mean,
Yeah, because
and report
it
that.
definitely opens up the door to who can dictate the county or the state. And I was even thinking so far as just outside the box here is just have a resolution that's a running request for these reports to be provided to the commission after every election. So that could be an option as well, trying to navigate around it until we get an answer. But yes, it's in my wheelhouse.
Commissioner Brown.
Well, it's a question. Who was this request made of? The state? I mean, the county or the state?
County.
We direct questions to the chair. We'll keep it in order, but if you have a question for a member, we can ask somebody. But yeah, it
That
is
was
county.
my question. Who got it?
Commissioner Klein, you're next.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little at a loss as to the circuitry of how this happens. Does this mean that the machines immediately post the number of votes for whatever as the night goes on? Is this within an hour of the polls closing? I'm not sure what's supposed to happen except that Microvote says they can do it.
I'm going by the record. It's basically is that the ability is there to furnish this record following each election. And the letter mentions Williamson County is because they set a precedent in Tennessee by releasing their CVR within 24 hours of their most recent election. It sounds like pushback in Sumner County is that's just not happening with the can't do it before and you can't request it before and you can't request it afterwards. So maybe, Williamson County obviously has done this, and so it might be behoove our law director to look into that for us on what Williamson County is doing as far as getting it to happen. But I mean,
Well, when we were elected at both the primary and the general election, when we were.
I wasn't in the primary.
Commissioner Teacher, thank you for reminding us you were not in the primary.
I wasn't bona fide.
And we're proud of you.
I just want to make sure, for the record.
We had numbers the following day of votes at least during the early voting.
I don't have an answer to your question, but if you guys want to suspend the rule, we can. Yes, sir. Sure.
To answer your question, I think you've got uncertified results. And then within the next day or a day after, it's within a short period of time, the vote is then certified after they go and examine the machines. You get a certified result. But again, personally, I don't see why you couldn't get a result as long as you know that it's an uncertified result until they have checked it.
So, this is my question. I just Googled this, and I looked it up, just because I wanted to see exactly, on my cell phone. The one I voted to keep. I voted to keep our cell phones, but anyway. So, a CVR is an electronic record of a voter's selections, with usually one CVR created per sheet of a ballot or page of a ballot. Election results are produced by tabulating the collection of CVRs, and audits can be done by comparisons of the paper ballots or paper records of voter selections against the CVRs. So, what we saw, like whenever on election night, when I looked and counted the write-ins, like I went to each spot, counted to see how many, because it was just I had to see the names. I don't think that was a CVR, was it? Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that was a printout of every vote that had been cast. But if I'm reading this correctly, it's like a CVR. Please forgive me if I'm wrong. Is a CVR just of each individual thing that I selected? Like if I voted for Abraham Lincoln and I selected Abraham Lincoln, then it would show up as selected with my name on that. Is that what that is?
Did you have anything to say further on that, Chairman Hunt?
No, you won't be getting a name as to how they voted.
But it says, though, usually one CVR created per sheet of a ballot.
Well, it may be created for that, but you're not going to get a name for it.
So I'll just, before you ask your question, I'm going to go back to this. I think the answers a little bit to your questions in this email.
Okay.
Again, it's time. We're voting on this tonight, got on the agenda for the Millersville, and so this is an issue with a new vote coming up. But I think the main thing is that, is this report possible to produce? The answer is yes. However, the problem is that counties have not been reporting it because it's not a procedural requirement. So the ask is to make it a procedural requirement. That's the ask. It's that simple. So it's not complicated. I don't want to overcomplicate it.
We have a motion on the floor.
We do, but I'm just trying to further explain that.
Yeah, okay.
But what we don't exactly know what that means. So who is the enforcing authority for requiring this procedurally, instituting this as a procedural mandate? We don't have the answers for that question yet, and that's the motion is to have the law director investigate it. So I don't think anything else is premature.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
I think I know the answer. I think because isn't it every county except for 2 in Tennessee or something like that uses microvote?
I do not.
If there's a can we suspend the rules and ask Tina Tobin if she knows that answer? Just that, a yes or no.
I'd second
I'm gonna keep it for time right now. I don't think it's gonna change anything.
Okay, well, if we don't, but I think if that's the case, that would mean there was some discretions, that would mean it would be a county decision.
Williamson County's doing it evidently.
Yeah, so I believe I believe we can make it a mandate,
But we
as
don't know
here.
the
Yeah.
process for
Okay.
making that mandate. So we got a motion, we got a second on the floor, so. Is there any other discussion? All right, and so restate your
My
motion.
motion is to direct the law office, county law director, to investigate and recommend language for institution of procedure mandate.
Second, whoever second.
Yeah, Commissioner Rogers said that second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to group and approve 10A and B.
Have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Zoning, these are just, again, docketing, and it's gonna come for the full commission next week.
Motion to adjourn.
We do need to motion to group and approve these.
Motion to
So
group and
moved.
approve.
So motion by Commissioner Shows, second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Hey, you can't second